My name is Maya Rivers. I'm 27 years old, I work in digital marketing, I drink too much coffee, and I have a soft spot for sad people and bad movies. For most of my life, I've been the friend, the dependable one, the listener, the person you call at 2 a.m. when your world's falling apart. I've held hair back over toilet bowls, sent angry texts on behalf of broken hearts, and built entire healing playlists for people who swore they'd never stop crying. But I wasn't prepared for Sophia. I wasn't prepared to open my door in the middle of the night and find her standing there with mascara smeared down her cheeks, clutching a duffel bag and shaking like the ground had just been ripped out from under her. I wasn't prepared for the way her voice cracked when she said, "He cheated," or for the way my heart broke right there in my chest. Not for her ex, but for her. Sophia had been dating the same guy for 3 years. She talked about him like he was her future. And now, suddenly, she was on my doorstep, raw and broken, and looking at me like I was the only solid thing left to her life. I pulled her inside, wrapped her in a blanket, and sat beside her on the couch until she fell asleep on my shoulder. That was the beginning of the end of something, of the start of something I didn't have a name for yet. This is the story of what happened next, of what bloomed in the spaces grief left behind, of the nights we spent pretending nothing was changing between us, and the moment we finally stopped pretending. This is the story of how she was getting over him while falling for me. The first night she stayed with me, she barely spoke, just curled into the corner of my couch like a wounded animal, knees tucked to her chest, eyes red and puffy, her fingers tightening around the mug of tea I made her like it was the only warmth she could hold on to. I didn't push. I didn't ask questions. I just sat beside her in silence, the TV playing some background noise we weren't really watching, and offered my presence like a shield. Sophia had always been the bright one, the kind of woman who lit up a room, who wore confidence like perfume, who laughed loudly and lived loudly and loved like it was the easiest thing in the world. Seeing her like that, shaken, quiet, unraveling, did something to me. I'd never seen her vulnerable before. Not like this. And even though every instinct in me screamed to reach out, to hold her, to take away the ache in her chest with my bare hands, I stayed still. She needed safety, not pressure. That first night, she fell asleep right there on the couch, head resting against my shoulder, and I stayed awake long after her breathing evened out, memorizing the weight of her against me, the scent of her shampoo, the fragile warmth of her skin where her arm brushed mine. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was just being a good friend. But the way my heart clenched when she sighed in her sleep told a different story. She stayed the next night too, and the night after that. She never officially asked. She just didn't leave. And I didn't ask her to. I stocked the freezer with her favorite ice cream. She took over the left side of the bathroom counter with makeup and skincare products and hair ties I pretended not to notice. I started waking up early to make her coffee before she even stirred in the guest room, and she started calling it home, without realizing she was doing it. We slipped into something easy, intimate, domestic. It wasn't romantic, not yet. But it wasn't just friendship anymore either. There were moments, quiet, charged moments that hovered just on the edge of something more. Like when she laughed too hard at my terrible jokes and covered my hand with hers without thinking. Or when she walked around the apartment in my oversized hoodie like it belonged to her. Or when I caught her staring at me from across the kitchen, eyes soft, mouth parted like there was something she wanted to say, but didn't know how. I didn't know what to do with any of it. Sophia was grieving. She was healing. She was rediscovering who she was outside of a man who never saw her the way I did. And I was falling. Slowly, deeply, stupidly. Every little thing about her dug deeper under my skin. The way she hummed when she was doing the dishes. The way she talked to the cat like it understood her heartbreak. The way she reached for me at night when the nightmares came and didn't let go until morning. I told myself not to feel this way. That it wasn't fair. That she needed time, space, clarity. Not me and all the complications I came with. So I kept it in. I smiled when she thanked me for being there. I nodded when she said she didn't know what she'd do without me. I let her hug me longer than necessary, let her fall asleep next to me on the couch again and again, and pretended I didn't want to kiss her every time she looked up at me with those tired, beautiful eyes. One night, maybe a week after she moved in, she came into the living room wearing nothing but one of my old t-shirts and sat down beside me, her legs tucked under her, face scrubbed clean of makeup. She looked younger like that. Softer. "Do you think he ever really loved me?" she asked suddenly, voice so quiet it barely reached me. I turned to her, and for a second I couldn't breathe. "I think he loved what you gave him," I said gently. "But he didn't know how to love you the way you deserve." Her eyes shimmered. "And how's that?" My heart was racing. I swallowed hard. "Like you're the most important thing in the world." Her lips parted slightly, and I saw it. The flicker of something in her gaze, something that made my pulse thunder in my ears. She didn't look away. Neither did I. But just when I thought she might lean in, might do something, she blinked and turned her face back to the TV. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saying that." I nodded, though I wasn't sure she saw. That night, when she hugged me goodnight, her arms lingered around my waist just a moment longer. And when she pulled back, her hand slid down my arm slowly, fingers trailing against my skin like a secret. I didn't sleep. Not really. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying that look, that touch, that moment, over and over again, and wondering how much longer I could survive pretending I didn't want everything I wasn't supposed to. I started noticing the way she looked at me. Not always. Not obviously. But in moments when I wasn't supposed to be paying attention. Like when I was talking on the phone, pacing the kitchen with my coffee in hand, and I'd glance up to find her watching me from the couch, chin resting on her knees, eyes wide and soft like I'd just said something important without realizing it. Or when we'd be at the grocery store, standing in front of the cereal aisle, and I'd feel her gaze on me as I reached for something on a high shelf. She'd look away when I caught her, but not fast enough. And always with that faint blush in her cheeks. It wasn't confirmation. Not exactly. But it wasn't nothing either. We never talked about it. Not directly. We filled our days with errands, laughter, wine nights, and movie marathons where she'd fall asleep halfway through and end up tangled in a blanket beside me, our shoulders pressed together, her head drifting toward mine. There was this invisible line between us, pulsing with heat, daring one of us to cross it. I thought about it constantly, what it would feel like to kiss her, to take her face in my hands and tell her everything. That she deserved more than the pieces that man left behind. That she was more than enough, more than beautiful, more than any definition she'd ever been given. But I didn't. Because every time I got close to saying something, I remembered the way she still flinched at his name. The way she'd stare at her phone like it might hurt her again. The way she still blamed herself in whispers when she thought I was asleep. So I waited. I was patient. Or at least I pretended to be. Then came the night that shifted something in both of us. We'd gone out, nothing fancy, just a dive bar near my place, the kind where the lighting is bad and the drinks are cheap. It had been her idea. "I need to feel normal again," she said, pulling on my arm like a kid. "Let me wear something reckless." I didn't know what reckless meant until she stepped out of my room, wearing a short black dress I'd forgotten I owned and red lipstick that made my chest ache. I tried not to stare. Failed miserably. We laughed a lot that night. Drank too much. Danced to songs we didn't know. She grabbed my hand during one of them, spinning me with zero rhythm and full joy, and for a moment I forgot every reason I'd given myself to keep my distance. When we finally stumbled back to my apartment, breathless and flushed, she kicked off her shoes and dropped onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. "This was fun," she said, tilting her head back and closing her eyes. "You're fun." I leaned against the doorframe, watching her, trying to memorize the curve of her smile in the dark. "You're not so bad yourself." She opened her eyes slowly, looking at me with something unreadable. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like?" My heart stopped. What would be like? She sat up, resting her elbows on her knees. "Us. You and me. If I hadn't met him first." The air thickened around us instantly. "Sophia, I'm not saying I'm ready," she interrupted, voice softer now. I'm not saying I know what I want, but sometimes I think about it. I crossed the room slowly, my pulse in my throat, and sat down beside her. You don't have to explain anything to me. But I want to, she said, turning toward me. Because you've been here, through everything. And there are moments when I look at you and I feel different. Like I'm seeing something I didn't know I was looking for. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Her hand reached for mine, tentative, fingers curling around mine like she was testing the shape of a possibility. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. Then don't, I said, voice shaking. But don't shut this out either, whatever this is. We sat there for a long time, fingers laced, not speaking, not moving. When she finally leaned her head against my shoulder, I closed my eyes and let myself breathe her in. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise. But it was something. A beginning. And that was enough for now. After that night, things didn't return to normal. At least, not the version of normal we had carefully built. There was something different in the way she looked at me now. Like she was searching for answers she didn't know how to ask. Like she was trying to read something in my face she wasn't ready to hear out loud. And I was more aware of her than ever. Her presence moved through my apartment like heat, like gravity. Every time she brushed past me in the kitchen or leaned her head on my shoulder during one of our late-night movie sessions, my body responded like it had been waiting all day for that moment. But I still didn't push. Even when she wore my t-shirts to bed and asked me to braid her hair. Even when she started texting me in the middle of the day just to say she missed my voice. I held my breath. I waited until the night she crawled into bed with me. It wasn't planned. She'd had a nightmare. I heard her call out softly, her voice fragile and panicked, and before I could even finish pulling on a sweatshirt, she was already standing in my doorway, eyes wide, breath shallow. Can I stay here? She asked. I nodded, pulled back the covers. She slid in beside me without a word, curling into my side like we'd done it 100 times before. My arm wrapped around her instinctively. Her head fit perfectly beneath my chin. I dreamed he came back, she whispered into the quiet. He was angry. I told him I didn't want him anymore, and he looked at me like I was the villain. Like I'd ruined everything. I held her tighter. You didn't ruin anything. He did. You're allowed to choose yourself. Her breath hitched. What if I don't know who that is yet? Then we find her, I said, together. She didn't reply, but her hand found mine under the blanket, and her fingers wove through mine with a kind of desperation that made my throat tighten. We stayed like that all night. No words, no movement, just warmth. Just her breathing against my collarbone, and the sound of my heart losing its rhythm because she was too close and I was too far gone. In the morning, I woke up before her. The sunlight was soft, filtered through the curtains, and her face was peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before. She looked safe. I brushed a strand of hair from her cheek and told myself not to fall in love with her face in the morning light. Too late. When she woke, she didn't move right away. Just blinked up at me slowly, her body still tangled with mine. Did I keep you up? She asked, voice thick with sleep. No, I said. You made it better. Her eyes searched mine for a long moment. Then, without a word, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to mine. It wasn't a kiss, but it wasn't just affection either. It was intimate in a way that made my chest ache. She whispered, thank you, and I wanted to ask what for, but I didn't. I just let the moment stretch between us, full and fragile and heavy with the weight of everything we hadn't said. Later that day, we went out to a street fair. Sophia wore a sundress and sunglasses, her laughter brighter than it had been in weeks. She held my hand briefly when we got separated in a crowd, and when she found me again, her fingers lingered against mine longer than necessary. We shared cotton candy. We danced along with a band playing something upbeat and messy. She spun in a circle in the middle of the sidewalk, arms open, hair flying, and I felt myself falling all over again. That night, back at home, we lay on the couch, feet tangled, a movie playing in the background. She turned to me suddenly, serious now, the laughter gone from her eyes. Can I ask you something? I nodded. If I wanted this, if I wanted you, would it be too soon? My breath caught. No, I said softly. It would be honest. She didn't respond right away. Just looked at me with a kind of fear and hope that made me want to wrap her in 100 blankets and kiss every part of her pain away. But she didn't move. And neither did I. Because even though she was asking, I knew she needed time. She needed to come to me not out of confusion or comfort, but clarity. And I was willing to wait for that. No matter how much it hurt, I told myself I could wait. That I was strong enough to let her take the time she needed, to come to me on her own, to figure out her heart without pressure. But wanting her was getting harder to hide. I caught myself staring too long, smiling too much, memorizing the way her fingers danced when she spoke, the way her voice softened when she said my name. Every moment with her was a quiet kind of ache, sweet and unbearable. I thought I was hiding it well, until the night she came home with flowers. I saw them and thought of you, she said, setting them on the kitchen counter like it was nothing. Like people brought their best friends flowers all the time. I blinked. These are my favorites. I know, she said, with a small smile. That night, we had wine on the balcony. She wore one of my cardigans, sleeves pulled over her hands, and talked about how her mom used to sing in the car when no one was listening. I hated it back then, she said. Now I'd give anything to hear her sing again. I reached out and took her hand, letting the silence say what I couldn't. She squeezed my fingers, then let go. I tried not to read into it, tried not to feel the sting of every almost. But it was getting harder. That week, I started writing again. Not full poems, just fragments. Words that reminded me of her. Lines that smelled like her shampoo, like the way her laugh settled in my bones. I never showed her. I didn't have to. She was in every word. One afternoon, I came home to find her asleep on the couch, my journal open on her lap. My chest seized. I moved quietly, unsure if I should be angry or terrified. She stirred as I approached, blinking up at me. I didn't mean to read it, she said quickly. It was open. I saw my name. I couldn't stop. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Maya, she whispered, sitting up slowly, the journal still in her lap. You love me. It wasn't a question. My throat tightened. I didn't want you to find out like that. But it's true. I nodded, heart pounding. I'm sorry. Don't be. She stood slowly, her fingers trailing over the pages. Do you know what it's like to read something so beautiful and realize someone wrote it about you? I didn't want to scare you, I said. I didn't want to ruin this. You didn't ruin anything. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body, the shakiness of her breath. I'm still figuring things out, still healing. But when I read your words, I felt safe. Like maybe this, whatever this is between us, is something I've been searching for without knowing it. I looked at her then, really looked, and I saw it. Not just sadness, not just confusion, but hope. Her hand reached up, touching my cheek gently. I don't know if I'm ready to fall in love again, she said, but I think I'm already halfway there. I leaned into her touch, my eyes closing. That's more than enough. She didn't kiss me. Not yet. But she rested her forehead against mine, and for the first time, we breathed in sync, like two people finally moving at the same rhythm. That night, she didn't go to her room. She crawled into bed beside me without saying a word. I held her as she fell asleep, her fingers twined with mine, and I knew, whatever happened next, we were no longer pretending. We were something. Finally. The next morning, I woke up before her. Her arm was draped across my waist, her face buried in the crook of my neck, her breath warm against my skin. For a moment, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just existed there, in that perfect stillness, holding onto the weight of her body curled against mine like it belonged there. The sun filtered in softly through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the sheets, and I wanted to stop time. Just for a little while. Just to stay in this moment, where nothing was complicated, nothing was uncertain, where it was just her and me and the kind of quiet that feels like home. When she finally stirred, She didn't pull away. Her hand slid lightly along my stomach as she yawned, her voice sleepy. Morning. I turned my head slightly to meet her gaze. Hey. Her eyes lingered on mine longer than necessary. I slept better than I have in weeks. Me too. She smiled, soft and crooked, then looked down at our tangled bodies. Is this okay? She asked. It's more than okay. I don't want to send mixed signals, she whispered. But I also don't want to leave. Then stay.
She did.
The entire day.
We didn't get dressed.
We didn't leave the apartment. We ordered takeout, ate on the couch, watched reruns of shows we'd both seen 100 times but suddenly felt new. At one point, I looked over to find her watching me instead of the screen. What? I asked, trying not to blush. Nothing, she said, shaking her head. Just, you're really beautiful when you're relaxed. I don't think anyone's ever said that to me. Then they're idiots. The silence that followed was warm. She leaned her head on my shoulder again, her fingers trailing along my arm absently, like she was drawing invisible lines just to feel me. That night, she changed into one of my oversized t-shirts again. This time, she didn't go to the guest room or wait for me to invite her. She just crawled into my bed like it was hers too. And maybe it was. We lay facing each other, barely a breath between us. Her hand found my waist under the blanket, not hesitant this time, but purposeful. I think about kissing you, she whispered. My heart stopped. I think about it a lot. Me too, I said, my voice barely a breath. Why haven't we? Because I didn't want to take anything from you that you weren't ready to give. Her fingers tightened slightly. You're not taking. You're offering. I reached up slowly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. And are you ready to receive it? I don't know what I'm ready for, she admitted. But I know I want this. I leaned in, just enough that our foreheads touched. Then let's go slow. No pressure. No expectations. Just us. Us, she repeated, like she was tasting the word. She didn't kiss me that night either. But she curled against me with her head resting on my chest, and I felt her fingers press against my ribcage like she was trying to memorize the beat of my heart. When I whispered goodnight, she whispered it back, and her lips brushed my collarbones so softly it felt like a promise. Sleep came slowly, but peacefully. I held her all night, and when morning arrived and she was still there, still wrapped in my arms, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of everything. I don't remember exactly when the shift happened. Maybe it was the way she stopped pulling away from my touch, or the way her eyes began to linger on my mouth just a second too long when I spoke. Or maybe it was me, how my hands started to memorize the shape of her waist in small, accidental touches. How I caught myself leaning closer, listening more carefully, breathing her in like she was oxygen, and I'd been holding my breath for years. It was in everything. The way we moved around each other in the kitchen, brushing hips with no apology. The way she wore my clothes without asking, like they were already hers. The way her hand found mine every night under the covers, always seeking, always gentle, like she was afraid I might slip away if she let go. We were dancing in a space between friendship and something more, something neither of us wanted to name, but both of us were sinking into, slowly, irrevocably. The first time she kissed me, it wasn't planned. There wasn't a grand build-up or a sweeping moment of dramatic tension. It was soft, quiet, honest. We were sitting on the couch, sharing a blanket and a bottle of wine, a movie playing in the background that neither of us had been paying attention to for the past 20 minutes. She'd been watching me instead, her legs tucked beneath her, fingers absent-mindedly twisting the edge of the blanket. I turned to ask her something, I don't even remember what, and found her eyes already on me. But this time, she didn't look away. Her gaze dropped to my lips, then back up again. Can I? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. My breath caught. Yes. And then she was leaning in, closing the small distance between us, her lips brushing mine with a tenderness that felt almost sacred. I exhaled into her mouth, my fingers finding her wrist, her jaw, anything to anchor me to the moment. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was careful, like we were both terrified of breaking something precious. When she pulled back, her forehead pressed to mine, her breath shaky. I opened my eyes to find hers already glassy with emotion. "I've been thinking about that for a long time," she whispered. "Me too." She kissed me again, firmer this time, and I felt it in my chest, in my spine, in the space behind my ribs that only she seemed to reach. Our hands found each other's bodies with that same mix of wonder and restraint, and the world outside that living room disappeared. Afterward, we didn't say much. She curled into me like always, her fingers tracing patterns along my arm, and we just lay there, quiet, warm, full of something unspoken that had finally been set free. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything we didn't need to say. The next morning, she was still beside me, wrapped in the blanket we'd shared. Her head rested on my chest, her breath steady. When I shifted slightly, she stirred but didn't move away. "Hey," she murmured. "Hi." Was that okay?" I smiled, brushing her hair behind her ear. "More than okay." She tilted her head up, her expression soft, vulnerable, beautiful in a way that made my heart ache. "I don't want to mess this up." "Then don't," I said gently. "Just be here with me. That's all I need." She kissed me again, quickly this time, with a small smile tugging at her lips. I think I could get used to this. We made breakfast together, moving around the kitchen in sync, stealing glances and small touches like teenagers with a secret. She fed me a strawberry from her fingers, and I kissed the juice from her thumb, and we laughed, breathless, full of something fragile and thrilling. The rest of the day passed in a kind of haze. We didn't talk about labels or timelines. We didn't make promises we weren't ready to keep. We just let ourselves exist in this new version of us, one that felt more real than anything I'd ever known. That night, she kissed me at the sink while we were washing dishes. No warning, no pretense. Just her lips against mine, warm and certain, her hands at my hips pulling me closer. "I missed this," she whispered.
"We just started," I said.
She smiled. "I know, but I think I missed it even before it happened." I held her close, breathing her in, and I realized I didn't need anything else. Not answers, not definitions, not guarantees. I just needed her. Here. With me. It didn't happen all at once. The shift from hesitant touches to bold ones, from quiet glances to open affection, it was slow, careful, like we were still learning the rhythm of something we'd already started dancing to in our hearts long before our bodies caught up. But there was no going back now. Not after that kiss. Not after the way she looked at me like I was safety, like I was light, like I was something she hadn't known she needed until she was already falling. The days after were quieter, gentler, but heavier in a way that made me dizzy. I found her looking at me more often, with less hesitation and more certainty. She didn't flinch when I touched her anymore. In fact, she leaned into it. Every time. She started reaching for my hand in public. Not dramatically, just in subtle, tender ways. Fingers grazing mine as we walked, a soft squeeze when we crossed the street, a hand on my lower back when we stood in line at the coffee shop. At night, we no longer pretended we slept apart. She curled against me under the sheets, her body fitting perfectly along mine, her breath warm against my throat. Sometimes we talked until we fell asleep, voices low, words soft, tangled in stories and truths that had never found a place to land until now. She told me things she hadn't told anyone. About how empty she'd felt those last few months in her past relationship. About how she'd stayed because she thought she was supposed to, because leaving would mean failure. About how hard it was to admit that love wasn't enough if it didn't come with safety, with softness, with space to be her full self. "With you," she whispered one night, her lips brushing my collarbone, "I feel like I can breathe." I kissed the top of her head, holding her tighter. "With me, you never have to be anything but you." Our intimacy deepened slowly. She began to undress in front of me without that flicker of self-consciousness I'd noticed before. I caught her watching me when I changed, her gaze lingering in a way that sent heat spiraling through me. One evening, as we got ready for bed, she stood in the doorway of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her. "You're beautiful," she said suddenly, like the words had escaped her before she could think. I turned to her, caught in the sincerity of her voice, the way her eyes softened as they met mine. "So are you," I whispered. She dropped the towel, walked toward me, and kissed me slowly, her hands finding my waist, my back, the nape of my neck. Her body pressed against mine, skin to skin, and everything else faded. We moved to the bed without words. There was no urgency, no rush. Just her lips against mine, her fingers exploring with reverence, her breath catching every time I gasped under her touch. We took our time. Every kiss, every caress was a conversation, a confession, a vow. When we finally lay tangled in the sheets, limbs intertwined, hearts racing in unison, she traced circles on my shoulder and whispered, "I've never felt like this before." I kissed her gently. Neither have I. In the days that followed, our closeness only grew. The apartment felt different, warmer, softer, like love had moved in with us. We cooked together, danced barefoot in the kitchen, left notes for each other in ridiculous places. I found one taped to the inside of the coffee cabinet. "You make mornings worth waking up for." She started stealing my hoodies. I started buying her favorite snacks without her asking. We created a rhythm that felt effortless. But even in the joy, there were shadows. One afternoon, I found her staring at her phone again, silent. "He texted me," she said without looking up. My stomach twisted. "What did he say?" "He wants to meet, just to talk." I tried to keep my voice steady. "And, do you want to?" She looked at me, then really looked, and I saw the conflict in her eyes. "I don't know." "You don't owe him anything," I said gently. "But if you need closure, I understand." "It's not about him," she said, her voice cracking. "It's about me. Making sure I'm really ready to move forward. Without guilt. Without questions." I nodded. "Then I'll be here. No matter what you decide." She came back that night, eyes tired but clear. She walked straight into my arms, wrapped herself around me, and whispered, "It's over. Really over." I held her as she cried, not because she missed him, but because letting go is never clean, never easy. Later, she kissed me like I was her future, and I kissed her back like she was mine. Loving her wasn't soft all the time. Sometimes it was sharp. Sometimes it was terrifying, because the closer she got, the more I realized how much I had to lose. I'd gone so long pretending I didn't want her, building walls to keep the feelings at bay, and now that she was here, really here, in my bed, in my arms, in every part of my life, I didn't know how to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I didn't tell her that, of course. I smiled through the mornings when she kissed me with sleep still in her eyes. I made her breakfast and laughed at her terrible jokes and kissed her fingers when she touched my face like I was something delicate. But inside, something kept whispering, "This is too good. This is too good. This can't last." And maybe she felt it too, because one night, as we sat on the couch wrapped in one of the blankets she'd chosen at the market the weekend before, she turned to me with a quiet kind of sadness in her eyes. "Do you think I'm just lost?" she asked. I blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Do you think I'm only with you because I don't know who I am without him yet?" Her voice was steady, but I saw the panic behind it. I reached for her hand, held it tightly. "Sophia, no. You're with me because we found something real. Something that was there before any of this started. And you know it. But what if I'm wrong? Then we figure it out together. That's what we've been doing, isn't it?" She nodded, slowly, and leaned into me. Sometimes I still get scared, like I'm going to wake up and not know how to be this version of myself. I kissed her temple. "You don't have to know. Not yet. You just have to keep choosing what feels right. Right now." "You feel right." Her voice was so small, so certain. It made my throat tighten. "You feel like peace." I wrapped my arms around her and held her close, and in that moment, I let go of the voice inside me that kept warning me to protect myself. I loved her, and she was choosing me. That had to be enough. Over the next few weeks, everything deepened. Our routines merged in ways that felt effortless. She started coming to my office on her lunch breaks, bringing me pastries I didn't ask for, and sitting on my desk while I typed, swinging her legs like she'd always belonged there. She introduced me to her sister. We went out with some of her friends, people who'd only known her as someone's girlfriend before. They looked at me curiously, but Sophia never hesitated. She held my hand under the table, kissed me outside the bar without flinching, called me babe like she'd been doing it for years. I tried not to let my heart explode every time, but there were still shadows. One night, I came home and found her sitting on the floor of the bedroom, surrounded by old photos and letters. I froze in the doorway, not sure whether to step in or give her space. "I found this box in the back of the closet," she said quietly. "Stuff I forgot I kept." I sat beside her slowly. "Want me to stay?" "Always." We went through the box together. Pictures of her and him, smiling, younger, in places that probably once meant something. She didn't cry, but she didn't smile either. She just stared at them like they were a version of her she no longer recognized. "It feels like looking at a ghost," she murmured. "Like someone I knew, but don't anymore." "That's because you've grown." Do you ever wonder if we're allowed to outgrow love? I think we have to. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. She reached for my hand, her grip firm. "I'm not going back. I need you to know that." "I do." She leaned over and kissed me, long and deep and full of something desperate. I kissed her back with everything I had. That night, we made love like it meant something more. Like it was the first time we'd ever let ourselves be seen without fear. No walls, no past, just skin and breath and a heartbeat shared between us. She whispered my name into my neck, like a prayer. I said I loved her before I even realized the words had left my mouth. She pulled back, stunned, and I braced myself. But then she smiled, soft and real and full of relief. "I love you too." And there it was. Finally, a truth we'd both carried in silence, now out in the open, bright and alive and undeniable. I held her close and let the moment wrap around us like a promise. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't healing. This was love.
Ours.
Loving her in private was effortless. Whispered I love yous in the quiet of my apartment, kisses stolen in doorways, fingers laced under blankets while the world slept. Those were moments I knew how to hold. But bringing that love into the light was something else entirely. Not because I was afraid of what people would say, but because I wanted to protect it. Because what we had felt delicate, not fragile, but sacred. And I didn't want to share it until we were ready. Sophia was the one who decided it was time. We were in the kitchen, dancing to music coming through the speaker. Something soft and slow, something that wrapped around us like dusk, and she turned to me, eyes sparkling, lips parted like a secret. "I want them to know," she said. "Your friends, my family, everyone. I don't want to pretend I'm not yours." My breath caught. "Are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything. So we started telling people. First, our closest friends, one by one, in quiet conversations that felt like peeling off a mask we hadn't realized we were still wearing. Most of them were happy, some surprised, a few hesitant. But Sophia never let go of my hand, not once. And that was enough. Then came her parents. I didn't go with her. She wanted to do it alone. I sat on the couch for 2 hours, staring at my phone, heart thudding every time a notification buzzed. When she finally walked through the door, her eyes were puffy but dry. "It wasn't easy," she said, "but they listened. They didn't say everything right,
But they said they loved me.
that they wanted to understand. And that's a start." I pulled her into my arms and kissed the top of her head, holding her as tightly as she needed. "You're brave," I whispered. "I'm lucky," she said, "because I have you." The next time we went out, she kissed me in the middle of a crowded sidewalk. It wasn't showy. It wasn't loud. It was soft and certain and real, and for the first time, we didn't look around to see who was watching. We didn't care. Her ex tried reaching out again. A long email, full of apologies and confusion and too late clarity.
She didn't respond.
Just forwarded it to me with a single message. This doesn't belong to me anymore. I read it, then deleted it. We didn't talk about him after that. We didn't need to. He'd been part of her story, but not the ending. Not the beginning of this. I started to see pieces of her that had been hidden before. The way she lit up when she talked about design, about wanting to go back to school, about how she always wanted to open her own studio but never thought she could. You still can, I told her one night, curled up on the couch, my hand on her thigh. You're allowed to start over. Even now, she asked, especially now. She smiled, leaned in, and kissed me like she believed it. Our days became filled with rituals that didn't need names. Her coffee on the left, mine on the right. My toothbrush beside hers. My books mixed in with hers on the shelf. She started calling it our apartment, and I didn't correct her. We went away for the weekend once. Just the two of us, a cabin, a lake, no signal. We lay in the grass, her head in my lap, pointing at clouds and laughing like we'd never known pain. That night, under soft blankets and the quiet hum of insects outside the window, she looked at me and said, "This is what love is supposed to feel like, isn't it?" I kissed her shoulder. Yeah, I think it is. It's peaceful, but also like being on fire in the best way. Exactly. I didn't know love could be both. I didn't either. Until you. She rolled over, pressed her body against mine, and kissed me until everything else disappeared. That weekend, we made love without words. Just breath and skin, and the kind of touches that say more than any confession ever could. She looked at me like I was home, and I held her like I'd never let her go. When we returned, it felt different, like the world had shifted around us, like we were no longer just surviving, but beginning a life. Together. One night, as we sat on the balcony with wine and our legs tangled beneath the blanket, she turned to me and said, "Do you think this will last?" I took her hand and kissed her knuckles. "I don't think," I said. I know. Love stopped feeling like a question. It stopped feeling like something we had to protect or hide or even define. It became the rhythm of our days. The way she would kiss me goodbye at the door with her shoes half on, coffee in one hand and her sketchbook in the other. The way I would get texts from her in the middle of meetings just to say she missed my laugh. The way she curled into me at night with a sigh, like I was the only place her bones remembered how to rest. We still had quiet days. Days where the weight of our pasts pressed in at the edges. Sometimes she would stare out the window longer than usual. Sometimes I would feel the echo of doubt whisper something cruel. But we had learned how to reach for each other when that happened. How to close the distance without always needing to speak. One morning, as I watched her tie her hair in front of the mirror, wearing one of my t-shirts and humming some old song I didn't recognize, it hit me all over again. I would love her in every version of her life. The one before me, the one beside me, and the one she hadn't even discovered yet. I walked up behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and rested my chin on her shoulder. She smiled in the mirror.
"You're staring," she said.
"You're beautiful," I replied. "And you're mine." She turned in my arms, her eyes soft but serious. "Do you still remember the night I showed up crying at your door?" Like it was yesterday. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't knocked. I cupped her face gently. Then I would have knocked for you. Eventually, some way or another, we were always going to find each other. She blinked back tears and kissed me, slow and deep and full of something that would never fade. We spent the next weekend at the same little cabin by the lake. No distractions. No noise. Just us. We lay on the dock beneath the stars, her fingers tracing letters across my stomach as she whispered dreams into the night. "I want to build something," she said. "Something with you. A life. A space that's ours. Something we create from the ground up." I turned to her, heart pounding, and said, "Then let's do it. Let's start now."
We did.
We moved into a new place together. A little fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood with chipped paint and creaky floors and a backyard just big enough for dreams. We painted walls while music blasted, covered each other in color and kisses. We hosted dinners with friends who now knew us as an us. We left toothbrushes in every room like a joke. We fought sometimes, about small things, big things, but we always came back to each other. Always. On our 1-year anniversary, she gave me a small box. Inside was a key, not to the apartment we shared, but to a small studio she'd rented nearby. A space filled with light and windows and paint-stained floors. "It's mine," she said, "because of you." I gave her a letter. 7 pages, handwritten, full of every word I had never said out loud. She cried halfway through. "You make me brave," she whispered. "You make me whole," I said. We lay in bed that night with the window open, the breeze brushing against our skin, her hand resting on my chest. "Do you think we'll still be like this in 10 years?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "And in 20, and in 50. I'll be old and wrinkly. You'll be mine." She laughed, kissed me, and whispered, "Always." And I knew then that I had loved her before I ever had the right to, before she was ready, before she even saw me. I had loved her quietly, patiently, completely. And now she loved me back.
Loudly.
Freely. Forever. Sometimes, love comes wrapped in heartbreak. Sometimes it starts at a door in the middle of the night with tears and silence, and a heart barely holding itself together. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it grows into something that saves you. And this was our salvation. She was getting over him while falling for me. And now she's mine. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.